Hello everybody, thank you for joining us. Today we will be practicing drawing some textures, and to get started, if you have your pencil ready, we are going to go with the very first texture. Now we will just work those textures for two different objects, and those are essentially, let's say that one is a tree, or the first object is a tree. And as we know that when we look at a tree, well, there's different kinds of trees, but the regular tree is one that has bark over it, and it has a very rough and sometimes even pretty balanced surface, in the sense that we have many straight lines in there, and sometimes, according to the tree, there might be circular objects in its texture. So, but we will be working with the more common one. So in this area we will highlight that particular texture. So basically, if I zoom in, let's say into an area, we have all these lines here. Now here there is no set rule, there's no set balance. You could go in all directions, but it is very important to check certain textures online. So that would be the general idea of just putting down the pencil, but then the details come out when you begin shading in and out of those lines. And in this case, of course, you will have to check the light source, if it is falling from this side or that side or from the top. If it's a tree, usually it is mostly from all angles. The tree is essentially circular, and it casts a shadow of its own because of the leaves going in. And then when we have this down, we can put in some extra details and make sure that they're not too wavy. But of course, now every tree does not have to be that. When you zoom in further, you could work in small crisscrossing lines like that merge back into the straighter lines on the sides, that is. And each one of these can have a shade its own. And I'm going to use a pen here to highlight this quickly, or as quickly as I can. So as you see, there's little rhythm except for the major lines that are even crisscrossing, but forming a pretty straight channel. And then in between are these more minute details. And of course, according to your preference of how much you would like to shade, fill, or ink, you could keep going. And this is in between the lines here. And I'm just putting it according to that size into the bark. Make sure that none of these cast a very, very deep shadow, because unless there's a big wedge in a very, very thick tree, they won't cast a very big shadow, all these sections of wood or bark in this case. So it's up to you of what the purpose of the illustration is. And then of course, according to your imagination, you're going to put in these details here into the tree. Make sure that if it is magnified, the details do not have to be as apparent as they are if I should actually rephrase that. What I meant to say was that if you zoom out, so this is a zoomed out version of this and this, so the details won't be as apparent in the zoomed out state. And you will of course focus on more of the core shading with bigger shadows depending on the light source, as I had mentioned. And that is the bit of work that you put into this particular texture. Another texture that you can work with is again wooden sections of wood again, and some trees with a smoother surface actually have this going through there. So it's like basically round oval lines entwined with straighter lines and highlighted and made more apparent with light and shadow. And then in between, sometimes even in between that, there are lines which actually edge out like that and eventually flow out with the bigger sections or segments in this case. I'm pretty sure that as rough as this is, you can still make out that, or you probably already recall that there are many trees that you have come across that actually have this flow of texture or this particular wooden texture in them. So that is the general idea of putting down quickly two different textures when it comes to wood or bark of a tree. I would recommend Googling some zoomed in images of texture, and what it will help you do is add more clarity and more depth to your artwork, particularly if you are focusing with the tree as a central object. I hope that this gets better with practice. Please do practice, keep in touch. Please do subscribe. Thank you very much for being with us. Have yourself a wonderful day.